What's up, Eco Nerdlings? Welcome to APES. We're going to have a great time this year. So before you start watching all of the other super exciting videos, I'm going to cover some of the basics in an Introduction to APES Part 1 and Part 2. Now, most of the time, I wouldn't tell you write everything down. You write down the important things. But for the next two video lectures, I would like you to go ahead and write everything for the most part down. Most of these are going to be vocabulary words, concepts that you're going to learn in APES. If it's a vocabulary word, I'm going to ask that you go ahead and underline the vocabulary word, discuss it below. So let's go ahead and get started. So again, welcome to AP Environmental Science. AP Environmental Science is an interdisciplinary science. It covers ecology, geology, chemistry, politics, engineering, economics, and ethics. It draws connections and interactions between humans and the rest of nature. It questions the validity of data and many other variables as well. So the most up and coming or prominent environmental issues are population growth, of course, increasing resource use, destruction and degradation of habitat, premature extinction of species, poverty, as well as pollution. So right here, these are pretty much all of the topics we're going to cover within APES this year. So we have solar energy providing 99% of the energy here on Earth. And on Earth, it kind of radiates out to these different topics. And that's what we will cover. So climate control, air resources and purification, water resources and purification, soil formation and renewal, waste removal and detoxification, natural pests and disease control, biodiversity in the gene pool, potential renewable matter resources, non-renewable mineral resources, non-renewable energy resources, renewable energy resources, and recycling of vital chemicals. So we're also going to look at human population. Basically, we're going to look at how, what the human population looked like a million years ago versus what the human population looks like today. Main topics, again, we have air pollution, which is going to include global climate change, stratospheric ozone depletion, urban air pollution, acid deposition, outdoor and indoor pollutants, as well as noise pollution. Do we see a trend here, people? We're pretty much causing all of these. Water pollution, which includes sediment, nutrient overload, toxic chemicals, infectious agents, oxygen depletion, pesticides, oil spills, biodiversity depletion. Basically, we are taking out and wiping out different types of species, habitats, including our own, and degradation, as well as contributing to extinction. We have food supply problems that we're going to take a look at, farmland loss and degradation, wetlands loss and degradation, coastal pollution, soil erosion, soil salinization, soil waterlogging, water shortages, groundwater depletion, loss of biodiversity, and poor nutrition. So sustainability, first vocab word. Obviously, you guys can go ahead and hit the pause button anytime you need to write down anything that you want. But sustainability is the ability of a specified system to survive and function over a period of time. Next up is sustainable living. This is meeting present needs without preventing future generations from meeting theirs. Basically not leaving our next generation, our offspring, with a deficit. Carrying capacity, this is a word that most of you should know if you took biology. That is the maximum number of organisms an environment can support over a specified period of time. Growth, and growth can be linear or it can be exponential. Linear growth is the quantity that increases by a constant amount per unit of time. And exponential growth, we have a quantity that increases by a fixed percentage of the whole in a given time. So doubling time, this is one of those equations that you need to know. You're going to have to be able to calculate doubling time, and we'll get into that even more when we talk about human population growth. So the equation for doubling time is 70, and we call it the rule of 70, divided by the percentage of growth rate, and that equals the doubling time in years. So for example, the human population growth right now is about 1.28% growth per year, or 216,000 people per day and 9,000 people per hour. So economic growth, we have our gross national product, or GNP, and that is the market value in current dollars of all goods and services that are produced by a country. And it's the per capita gross national product, and that's the GNP divided by the total population. So make sure you know GNP versus GDP, which is the gross domestic product. This is market value in current dollars of all goods and services that are produced within a country for use during a year. So one thing that we're going to talk about, especially when we get to human populations, are developed versus developing countries and the different stages of a developing country. So currently, about 1.2 people, or 20% of the world population, lives in a developed nation, such as the United States, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, many parts of Europe. These are countries that are very highly industrialized. 85% of the world's wealth and income is located in developed nations. We also, in developed nations, use 88% of the world resources, and we generate 75% of the world's waste. So there are many different stages of developing nations, and we'll get into that later. But for the most part, you need to know that 4.9 billion people, or 80% of the world population, lives in a developing nation. These have very low to moderate industrialization. They basically contribute 15% of the world's wealth and income, and they use only 12% of the world's resources. Developing nations include Asia, Latin America, Africa, India. So this is just kind of a little map right here to show you about low income. You're going to see low income in, India, Africa, parts of Asia. Middle income, you're going to see South America, some parts of Europe and Asia. And then our very high income, you're going to see the United States, Canada, Australia, and over here, my favorite place on earth, Kiwi land, New Zealand. So another equation you need to know is how to calculate environmental impact. So environmental impact is equal to P, or the population, times A, the affluence, times T, the technological impact, divided by the unit of course. So we have people over population, which is the number of people, times the number of units of resources used per person, times the environmental impact per unit of resource used, and that gives us the environmental impact of an entire population. So we have what we call an ecological footprint, or environmental impact. This is the amount of land needed to produce the resources needed by an average person in that country. So of course, if you look here, draw your eyes downwards, you can see that people in the United States and the population in the United States have a pretty big footprint. And that's not a good thing right now. So we're going to talk about resources. We have renewable versus non-renewable. So if you look at this beautiful flow chart right here, examples of some renewable resources include direct solar energy, winds, tides, flowing water. Non-renewable resources, of course, include our fossil fuels, metallic minerals such as iron, copper, and aluminum, and non-metallic minerals such as clay, sand, and phosphates. Now, we do have some potentially renewable resources, and it's all dependent on us and how we use them. Those include fresh air, fresh water, fertile soil, and plants and animal biodiversity. But with those, if we're polluting and things like that, we're not going to have those resources that we can reuse. So one concept that we'll discuss is called the tragedy of the commons. This was written by Garrett Hardin. He basically discussed the use or overuse of common property. He talked about common property such as clean air, the open ocean, fish in the open ocean, wildlife species, publicly owned land, grass, gases, grasses, trees, atmosphere, birds, basically anything and everything that's kind of, common ground that we can overuse, because there's not really somebody saying, hey, you can only have 5 fish, or you can only have 1 tree. So that's the overuse of common property, or tragedy of the commons. Globalization includes social, economic, and environmental change that leads to an increasingly integrated world. Also includes economic, information and communication, as well as the environmental effects of all of these. So this was part one of your introduction to apes and introduction vocabulary. Obviously, you can rewatch this or any other videos at my website, nerdlingscience.com. This is the Queen Nerdling signing off for now. Stay nerdy till next time.